A Ranger on a Wildtrak. Maybe that's me today, but that's also the name of the vehicle. The all-new generation of the Ford Ranger as the version Wildtrak, the top trim level. That is today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. Exterior, interior and the driving features. It's very cold, rainy, everything. But for you, I hope it's really cozy in your living room. So relax and enjoy this very interesting episode with this smaller brother of the Ford F-Series. But rumors say that this one will also come to the US in 2018 as a smaller entry level version. But then in Europe, this is the Ford pickup, and lately this one here in Europe and in Germany leading the pickup truck segment. Let's find out why. An Autogefühl in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So as a single cab, the Ford Ranger in the new generation starts at about 27,000 euros in Germany and goes up, here the Ford Ranger Wildtrak, the top trim, about 41,000 euros, which is then not at all cheap anymore. But if you compare it, for example, to a Volkswagen Amarok, you can also find the full review of that one on Autogefühl with the recent facelift, you still save about 15,000 euros. So this one here is way cheaper, especially in the higher trims than the Amarok. That might be a reason why this one here, the Ford Ranger, kicked the Amarok off the throne of the new vehicle registrations in the pickup segment in Europe and in Germany. This new generation, the front grille, very strong now, reminds us a little bit of the F-Series from the design. The Wildtrak version has this sporty grille, black, matte black, is it not as black as the vehicle color today, and also a stronger lower part. Overall, it says already, well, I'm really a grown-up pickup, although there are some bigger ones above me, and I like the styling of this new generation here. Do you? 5 meters 36 or 17 foot 6 is the total length of this vehicle, and no matter if you go for the single cab version, that would be like this, the double cab, big one like this with a sports bar here, that's just a visual element. Then just a loading area is shorter, or also the extra cab that's like this 2+2 version with suicide doors. The length always remains the same, but you have those three options depending on if you're more on the passenger side or more on the loading side. Very interesting. The Wildtrak version features some logos here, and we also got those huge side steps. They are bad for off-road driving. It's more maybe a visual thing, but they don't really make sense in a practical sense. They get dirty quite easily, and also for the transition between outside and inside, maybe not the best solution. Then 17-inch we got at the rim for the winter tires. The Wildtrak version would usually be mounted with 18-inch, and the very entry version starts with 16-inch. The Wildtrak version also features those fake air outtakes in the side with a 3.2 liter diesel sign, pretty massive. So overall a more aggressive look for the Wildtrak version again. Overall, of course, a classic pickup style. As for the side profile, contrasting roof rails. I like a pickup, you know, it was one of my dream cars when I was playing Matchbox cars. So I'm a little bit influenced as for this one. And of course, really high, so the car is almost as high as me. And I was going in my basement garage, and the antenna was blocking the ceiling. So it was interesting that you can just fold it down a little bit. Here you can fold it up or go it in the middle way. And if you want to have it down, just press it down, then it's a little bit flatter. Angular shape in the rear, overall strong as we're used to from a pickup. Huge logos also for the Ranger style, and those square with a little bit round headlights. Overall a modern but still classic pickup design. And overall I think from design perspective, I really like it. Together with the Volkswagen Amarok and the Ford F-Series, the bigger ones, my favorite as for designs, those three in the pickup segment. Would you agree? Tell us more in the comments. Wow, the rain keeps pouring down. Car key, slim, modern, why not? Doors, well the sound is, let's say, not too solid, but the handles are solid. This is the Wildtrak trim levels. It also reflects in the inside with use of, I think, leatherette here already on the inside. One auto window command, the other ones are manual. Wildtrak entry logo. We got those side steps which are, well, reducing the ground clearance, more visually thing. Then the normal trim levels, the lower ones, start with overall cloth seats. Limited is with animal skin, so leave that one out. And Wildtrak is mainly fabric, also in this orange contrast. This is well to sit on, also good for the climate comfort. And if those parts here are leatherette or animal skin, I could not find it out. The price list in Germany says just leather, but some other sources speak of leatherette. It's really hard to find out. I think it is leatherette, I think at least those parts, but the main focus is fabric, so that's already a good choice. Steering wheel also with orange contrast stitches, so overall this orange character of the car also stitches here. Dashboard is for sure leatherette. By the way, that's just because my gloves are a little bit wet. And we can already see from here that the interior quality is solid, not the highest class premium, but again, it's quite a good price performance. Let's get inside. Those rubber floor mats, they can be cleaned quite easily. And the good thing is about this pickup truck, the high seating position. I really like that command view to all of the sides, and it's very comfortable. As I said, good climate comfort with the mainly fabric seats here in the Wildtrak version, and overall also on long autobahn rides, really good comfort also for tall people, 6'1" or 1m86, my size or height. So a lot of space. That's really one of the best things about the car already in the front, and also a panic handle here for off-road riding or getting in and out. Cockpit overview. I want you to look here because I'll tell you something more about this when we drive the car. That's the warning indicator light that it's working. It's appearing here, and then it looks like it would be projected into the front screen when you're getting too close to a car. Very interesting. What do we do have here? Let me light up the instruments here, and we can also get this one here lighter. This is still the Ford Sync 2 system, and I really don't like it, seriously. Auto dim off now. And the reason is it's too complicated. It's not intuitional. You have to search everything you're going for. I mean, do I got this app view, GPS, temperature, radio, and then phone. Bluetooth phone connection is working very well. That's nice. Other than that, it's too complicated. You have to load everything quite long. Everything takes long. Also to type in an address really takes ages. You see here also the reaction times. GPS does the job well when you want to go somewhere for a destination. That works, but especially while driving, it's too complicated to control it. Also, you have to go to the temperatures and set them digitally where the vents are coming from, while driving, that's really complicated to do. But watch the Ford Kuga facelift video with AJ. There we already have the Ford Think 3 system. Then we had here the volume control with cheap rubber around, and again the build quality is not at the best. We can see it's just solid. Then we can still manually press plus and minus from the temperature. Two 12-volt power supplies in the lower part. USB slot are down there. Some space and off-road commands for the rear differential. Soon more to that. Shifting stick. The steering wheel is really soft, also underneath the surface, and quite compact. Again with those contour stitches. And also here in this Wildtrak version, and you can see the design line right here to make a strong appearance. It's like a front hood in the interior. And also again in the other direction right there. So overall the design is quite nice. Maybe if you leave out this infotainment system and the unit below that. So as it's a new generation, I would have expected a little bit more. But of course it's more modern than the previous Ranger generation. Little armrest, a little bit loose, also not dampened, but a lot of space on the inside. That's good. Really huge space, and also two split for some smaller stuff, and then beverage holders, but they're not adaptive. So if you have smaller bottles, that won't work that well. And still a manual handbrake. I like that old school stuff. Glove box. That is not falling down smoothly, but there's a lot of space on the inside. That's a good thing. Rear differential lock, hill descent control. Sorry, I take the other finger. Hill descent control, and ESC putting it off. And then here rear wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and that would be the off-road gear reduction. You can have to stand still and then set the driving stick to neutral. But that's just for harsh off-road driving. And it's interesting, you should rather do it in a rear-wheel drive for normal driving. I will tell you later why when we drive the car. Here another close-up, you see those rubber surroundings, but the illumination is nice around that one. And here, for example, seat heating if the engine would be running, and then the plus-minus functions again. So pretty standard. It sits a little bit low, maybe not that well to see. And one more close-up at the infotainment system that you can show you a little bit around there. The frame, by the way, that feels quite nice. That's okay. Other than that, here you can always get back to the climate area again. If you press the upper part, you get to the settings. You can also set the clock quite easily, or the display settings for this auto dim at night. But I have also here auto dim manual offset, that it's even darker because I found it quite blinding, a little bit too bright for driving at night. And connecting a phone via Bluetooth is really pretty simple. I already have my phone mounted here. As for the instruments, and look in the middle part, and then right side and left side, you have those digital screens, and you can control them at the steering wheel. For example, that's a little bit strange. Fuel economy, at the moment about 10 liters, is in a different mode than the digital speedometer, so a little bit complicated. On the right side, you would pick the phone, or for example, also navigation information that you have, that directly there, and not have to look at the central screen. You can also put your next phone calls from here, for example. That's also possible. Unluckily, the control for the steering wheel is good and solid, but you can only move it up and down, not towards you. However, I usually find this very bad, but somehow in this car I have not needed it. So it's, for me at least, the perfect position. As for the length, I would just leave it just like this, so lucky for me. Then I'm also fine with just the height, lower control, but that might be different for others. What about the rear compartments? Easy entry, almost 90-degree opening, and it's really fun to step inside here. Whoa, a tuned Golf, a very old one. And space in front of my knees, so very comfortable to sit here, also upright. Headroom also given for even for my size. It's really perfectly fine. So I think at least for 4 adults, very good. Well, there's this huge middle tunnel, so For the fifth person, maybe not too good. But the double cab option is of course the best for passengers. You know, there's also this single cab where it ends right here, and then this version in between. So between the single cab and the double cab, there's also this extra cab where you have 2+2, just suicide doors and then smaller seats in the rear. So you can adjust it to your needs. Some beverage holders are foldable here. And then what is also interesting, the first option you have is you have some hidden elements right here. If you pull the strap, then you flip it up, you have two secret chambers here below the seats, but you cannot fix them upright. So it's not this magic seat option as we've seen with Honda or for example in the Volkswagen ID concept. Then second possibility is to flip the seat bench totally, and I'll just fold in. So, and you might think about, what is this for? Well, it doesn't go all the way down, but that could be, for example, if you're maybe on a construction site and want to put something, you know, tools here or maybe behind that, and you don't want to damage the seat. That could be one solution, but to fold it down, but it doesn't seem to fold down all the way. So yeah, that maybe has something to do here with seat belt holders. You have to squish them on the inside, but then we have also recently experienced that if they're hidden then on the inside, it's really hard to get them out again. So not the most versatile solution, but at least you have those options. Optionally, or with the Wildtrak variant, you also not only get a third 12-volt power supply, but also a real plug, 230 volts. This is the UK version now, and for Germany you would have to use an adapter. But of course it's handy to charge a laptop here in the rear, for example, or also tools at the construction site. So what about the loading area? First of all, this mountain top roll you can get optional, and you can also close it with a separate key. Then it's fixed, you cannot open it. I can show you later on. And well, no, this one should be from the normal key then. See here, you can also close it with the normal key. Yeah, that's closed. This way it's opened, and then you can really close both. It's good to secure stuff, of course. Yeah, it's still raining, but we are doing just all for you. It's really unpleasant for us, but cozy maybe in your living room. Then let's open the hatch. Plastic here with, you know, scratch resistance. And then the system here to open it is not that thought through, because it's the same system that we see in the Volkswagen Amarok. So to the right side you open it, you have to be really strong. And then, for example, in the Amarok, it slides down automatically to the very back. So that's the way. Of course, in this double cab here, the space in the rear is limited. With a single cab, you just have a longer loading area. However, you can always put 1,260 kilograms, so over a ton, is the additional loading that is possible here. And fixations for tension belts, for example, here, and you can also slide them to the front and the back. You know, that's a good solution here. Oh, but there's, what's that? I'm not sure if it's another power supply, something like that. Maybe one of you guys know that. And then to get this one here back, by the way, you can also get different surfaces with, again, the plastic surface, but it's also really resistant here. If you pull very hardly, also this solution we've seen better with the Volkswagen Amarok, that almost came back automatically. And to the left side you secure it again. And if I close it, let's take a look at the towing equipment, because here, there it is, and also the electrical support. 3.5 tons, so this car is often used, for example, if someone has horses or something like that. So that's the maximum then, and especially with the big diesel, that's no problem for this car. Engine, hey, hydraulic dampers, 3.2 liter diesel. Huge displacement, not so much horsepower output. I like it because it's more durable. 200 horsepower, and of course all-wheel drive. You can set it to all-wheel drive. Usually it's primarily rear-wheel drive, as with most real off-road pickups. A 2.2 liter diesel is also available in Europe with 130 or 160 horsepower. And then outside of Europe also a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated petrol engine with 160 horsepower. And probably that one will also be the one when the car comes to the US in 2018, I heard. Yo, you joined the driving part. Great choice. So let's do so. As I said earlier, the 3.2 liter diesel engine, the stronger diesel, we're driving here today, 200 horsepower. And you mainly need that one if you want to tow something. So if you just drive it rather empty, that car here for leisure or whatever, then the 2 liter diesel will also do just fine. And I said earlier also, outside of Europe you can get that big petrol engine. But of course it's never bad to have power. And also the consumption does not necessarily need to be higher with a bigger diesel, because here we get this horsepower from bigger displacement. And that's not so good tax-wise and not so good for Ford from the official CO2 figures, but effectively it's not that bad. So I can ride this car with about 9 liters consumption on 100 kilometers, and I really suppose that the 2 liter diesel won't be really better. It's very interesting. So it's always fun to ride a pickup because you sit high, upright, have a good view to all of the sides. And the car also doesn't feel that huge. So it is quite long, but it's very well controllable. The steering is also very light. Maybe for some of you guys it could be too light, as it also remains relatively light at higher speeds and then tends sometimes to feel a little bit unnatural. Got this soft grip at the steering wheel because below the surface there's a lot of, what is it, foam? Or I'm not sure. It's really soft. So you can also see it when I press it. It's very interesting and also gives you a certain feeling while driving. The diesel is relatively loud, truck diesel-like. Listen to it. 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic transmission. In this case we got the automatic transmission. And if you are accelerating in a linear way, that feels pretty smooth. But however, sometimes I have the impression that the automatic does not 100% know what to do now. Especially when you accelerate and lift the throttle in some points and gears are switching back and forth sometimes. You can also control it manually, going with the shifting stick to the left side and then in this sport mode. And then you can shift up or down, putting it backwards, shifts up, forward, shifts down. You can also hear it. That might make sense if you want to use the engine brake when going downhill for a longer time. Or maybe if you want to drive a little sportier. As I have this huge bus in front of me now, at the moment I can also test the cruise control, which is in an adaptive trim in the Wildtrak variant here, so keeps the distance. I can also set the distance at the steering wheel for distance dots maximum, but I can also decrease it so I get a little bit closer than to the bus in front of me. On the Autobahn I set the distance a little bit higher. That makes sense. So I'm not braking at the moment. It's just with the ACC that is doing it. And that works really flawless. I'm very satisfied with the system. We also have a side or lane keeping assist. I will show you that on the motorway. I can also see it visually in the left part of the display. And that one reminds me to keep in lane, especially when you're on the Autobahn. Also gives an acoustic warning. What else is interesting is, for getting close, for example, to the bus here. When I'm getting too close, Then there's also a red warning flash which is projected into the windscreen. That resembles the Volvo technique, and I'm sure they're sharing this technology because those Volvos that had that optionally are also one of the old Volvos that use the same thing. Let's see if I can induce it and if you can see it. Not sure now, it did not work. Maybe we'll try it again at the Autobahn at higher speeds. Maybe it has something to do with that. But I found it quite handy because I got those red indicators then like a head-up display. They make really much sense. And it reminds you, especially on the Autobahn, to keep a certain distance if you have not set the adaptive cruise control. Sound insulation wise, I'm not, I'm not dissatisfied or unsatisfied in general, from the outside. But the engine is getting quite loud if you hammer it. Here this would be a case running down and go to the sport mode and shift down and let the engine brake help me, that I don't have to hit the brakes all the time myself. Also have this small RPM meter mounted in the instruments right now. However, if you run this engine at lower RPMs, it's also not that loud, so then it's relatively silent indeed. So I can soon show you more about the handling as well. I've also tried it at higher Autobahn speeds already earlier today, and was running about 170, 180 kilometers now, and that, it's not the optimum using for this car, but it still worked pretty well. It just got a little loud. And also I was satisfied with the brakes. They did quite well. So especially this upright seating position for long-term comfort, that makes you really good feeling when driving this car. Is one of the main aspects to me. I just like riding those cars that sit a little higher, have a little off-road feeling. That makes sense. I'm going in the rear-wheel drive mode at the moment, by the way, and the thing is, that should be the standard road mode, and I can tell you why. Because, for example, when I'm standing still now and turn the steering wheel to all the way and then drive, perfectly fine. Nothing's happening, nothing that I can feel. However, if I switch to the 4H mode, I can do that also while driving. Then the overdrive system sets it to 50-50 front and rear. When I then turn the steering wheel and want to go, I already feel there's some kind of resistance, especially when I apply the throttle just a little bit. And why is that? So what's happening is, when you have the same torque at the front and the rear wheels and turn the steering wheel all the way around, the car works against itself. And because usually when you turn that slowly, not every wheel is turning at the same speed. And this fixed overdrive is then working against this force. By the way, now let's try it. He can show you also. Now went back to the rear-wheel drive mode. Acceleration on the Autobahn, 60 kilometers to 100. So you see there's reasonable power for this bigger diesel engine. Now again sitting in the cruise control. And now also the lane keeping assistant is active. There's also this active lane keeping assistant, so I feel that the steering wheel is sometimes doing corrections and keeps me in lane. Let's see if that's also possible to induce that one. I'm not sure how strong the assistant is yet. Let's see. Yeah, that, you see, that was. Now it didn't work. So you've seen this with one impulse from the steering wheel, so that sometimes also can save you when you may be missing a situation. Let's carefully induce that again. To me, have you seen it? to me, it reacts a little bit too late. I've seen other systems that react a little bit faster, and you see, I was reacting, just from my reflex, because that's too late. I don't want to take that risk. In the moment I'm reacting, the car is also reacting. So I would prefer maybe the electronic system to react a little bit earlier. That would be great. But you see, it basically works. Now the cruise control again, and I'm still in this rear-wheel drive mode. There's also something of a differentiation when you accelerate now in the rear-wheel drive mode. You really feel you're getting pushed. And if I'm going now, I can also change it at higher speeds to the four-wheel drive mode, then hammer throttle. You feel a little bit that you're also getting pulled from the front. So very interesting to feel. It's a minor difference on the Autobahn, but the four-wheel drive mode really only makes sense off-road, because in the city you cannot really steer with it. It also makes it sound like because the wheel force is it's not really working because of the different turning revolutions of the wheels in this fixed four-wheel drive mode. Very interesting. And the off-road gear reduction, you can also apply it, but not while driving. You have to stand still for that if there's really harsh off-road situations. So far, getting back to the rear-wheel drive mode now. Let's see, I'm usually not driving too close to cars, so I also won't test this red flashing light now. But I had that earlier in a situation where someone was cutting me off, and then this flashing light was active. Maybe you can see it on camera, not sure. There are also this heated windscreen lines in the window, and this is typical for Ford, and most Fords nowadays also get ordered by that, especially when you don't have a basement garage. That's a really handy feature, so that can make sense. I don't like to look at it when I'm looking against the gray sky, so I would not pick it when I'm can park this car somewhere under or maybe in the garage. But if you go for it outside and then it's maybe snowy, or have a lot of low temperatures in your region, that might make sense that you go for it then. It's, by the way, also funny if you have a small car in front of you and you see that massive hood, the car in front of you almost disappears when you're standing behind it, and that can of course be a little bit intimidating also when you're sitting in that car in front of us. That so always has two sides then in this case, of course. Very interesting also. Wipers are a little bit loud, aren't they? By the way, also the turning indicator sound sounds a little bit like a music song from the 80s. A little bit weird. But to remain in this very detail, what is interesting is that using the turning indicator switch is relatively comfortable. So that gives you a good feeling and a good feedback, just not the acoustic feedback that is not up to an optimum. Using the infotainment system while driving is a catastrophe. As I said earlier, it will be better with the Ford Sync 3, as AJ showed you in the Ford Kuga review. But here, the temperature control, yes, you can control plus and minus while driving with separate buttons. Also the seat heating, that's placed relatively low and also hard to see down there. If you want to do something in the infotainment screen, for example, where the airflow should be coming from, you have to do it here in the separate screen, but you have to access it first with the main menu. And doing this while driving, it's a little bit messed up, everything. So I need a better overview here for, especially while driving, for the infotainment system. So now going to a more agility part, of course, has an off-road suspension, therefore the car is also leaning towards the sides. It's sitting relatively high with this 23 centimeters of ground clearance, so 3/4 of a foot. and 80 centimeters of wading depth, so you can go through water. And therefore it's also shaking a little bit when I'm doing this right and left, but that's perfectly fine for that car. And as I said earlier, I've been also testing this car on higher autobahn speeds, and besides the not that thought through sound insulation, I mean, it's also not the best wind resistance, of course, with this building form, but besides that, it was relatively stable also at higher autobahn speeds, so I was positively surprised by that. And such a bad weather outside today, but when you're riding such a vehicle, you still feel relatively comfortable because of this high seating position. You're in a command driving perspective. You know it is off-road capable, so also if you're maybe facing a landslide or maybe the water is rinding somewhere over the road, you know you're quite safe and you can always use the four-wheel drive mode. And even parking in the city, I tried it together with the rear view camera. That was perfectly fine because of this very light steering wheel again. So driving wise, it is, I mean, really a pleasure to drive that car. You can say so. It's of course not full of the most enthusiastic driving fun. But overall, really a fine experience, and that might also explain why a lot of people were going for this car lately in Germany and in Europe in this very segment here, together with the rather attractive price they're offering also in comparison to the competitors. Huge side mirrors, I can see very well, and you might have also realized that the very outer part of those side mirrors, they have another angle to reduce the blind spot. However, an electronic blind spot monitor would of course be cool, but that's not available yet here. But for a pickup truck, we already have a lot of assistant systems, so that's quite nice. I don't want to try out the emergency brake. It's a little bit too risky. I mean, we don't want to damage something, or maybe just in search for proof, for sure. And sitting relatively high also offers you a good sight always through the surrounding landscape. That's maybe also one of the main reasons to go for that one. And what I've told you earlier about the seats, that it has the most part with the fabric, also is good for the overall climate comfort, be it in winter or in summer times. And now the conclusion, the all-new generation of the Ford Ranger. Exterior really attractive, and I think also one of the main reasons to buy the car, to have this stronger lifestyle pickup exterior. Then a good price-performance deal. That's the second reason why, for example, this car is also being sold for commercial customers, for example, also for construction sites and so on. Sometimes also with a single cab to have the biggest loading compartment. That's still you know, a good thing. The interior offers you a lot of space. The build quality should be a little bit better, and there, for example, the Volkswagen Amarok leads it as for the interior quality, but then again, the Amarok is way more expensive. Driving is fun in that vehicle, so I like that overall. Maybe the steering is sometimes a little bit soft, and we need the Ford Sync 3 system in here. Maybe that will come with a facelift, but I would have wished that it's already included in this new generation. And of course, relatively off-road capable, not as much as the Ford F-Series, but then again, not so many people are going off-road with that one than maybe in the other markets. And soon as it's maybe worldwide available, this could surely be also used for an entry version also in the US. And so far, the sales success in this segment is huge for that vehicle. Hope you liked our insight here today. Join us also again next time with Thomas and my colleagues here on Autogefühl.